BRICS Global Television Network's weekly news roundup. Hello, I'm Juliet Newell. We start with the headlines. Farmers protest in India. Egypt and Brazil strengthen bilateral relations. The latest investment trends. And the US one step closer to banning TikTok. We begin in India, where thousands of farmers have taken to the streets in New Delhi, demanding guaranteed minimum prices for 23 crops. The protesters want government to pass legislation to protect minimum pricing. Around a third of India's farmers own less than 2.5 hectares of land each, and they say without fixed minimum pricing in place, they're at the mercy of markets. Protesters are also demanding free electricity for farming. These demonstrations come at a crucial time for India, with the national elections fast approaching. More than 60% of India's 1.4 billion population depends on farming to earn a living. That's a large voting bloc owing to the sheer number of farmers. Meanwhile, the Indian government's concerned about how artificial intelligence could be used to threaten the integrity of the electoral process. India's general elections are expected to be held between April and May this year, when voters will be electing 543 members of the Lok Sabha. But Modi's government wants to regulate AI to prevent the release of any unreliable or under-tested generative models or tools. Policies have now been pushed through that require tech companies to seek government approval before launching new tools. This is an about turn on government's original stance on AI. In April last year, government told Parliament it was not looking at implementing any legislation to regulate AI. However, with elections fast approaching, government's doing all it can to prevent voter manipulation. But the latest move by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government is to keep tabs on AI, and it's being criticized by many who say it stifles innovation. Egypt and Brazil have committed to strengthening bilateral relations by 2024, taking them to the level of strategic partnership. The two countries are celebrating the 100th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations. Egypt recorded a volume of trade with Brazil of over $2.8 billion in 2023, making it Brazil's second largest trading partner in Africa. And following a meeting with Brazilian President Luiz da Silva and his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, a number of agreements are already on the table, and these include technical cooperation, extradition of convicted prisoners, and investment. Our BGTN Brazil correspondent Chris Goldenbaum has more.
Brazil and Egypt are celebrating 100 years of diplomatic relations. In February 1924, Brazil established a diplomatic office in Cairo as a way to recognize Egypt's official independence. Since then, the two countries have nurtured a friendly relationship, notably within commercial trading and tourism. To celebrate the centenary of diplomatic relations, several events will take place throughout the year. In February, a bilateral meeting was held to commemorate the anniversary. Yet, some say Brazil's main gift to Egypt has already been delivered. As acting president of the G20, Brazil invited Egypt to participate in the group's meetings and to attend the Rio de Janeiro summit next November. Egypt is not part of the G20 countries, so the invite shows the country's relevance to Brazil. Aside from a growing commercial relationship, Egypt is also an important actor in the Middle East. It assisted the Brazilian effort to remove its national citizens from the Gaza Strip at the start of the latest conflict.
The importance of inviting Egypt to the G20 is part of having such an old bond with the country. It shows the clear thought that Egypt may actually be a leader in the region, where it's trying to become a stronger power. And I'm not only referring to the region of Arab countries, but also of Africa.
Aqui eu não estou falando apenas da região dos países árabes, mas também da região da África.
The Arab Chamber of Commerce have been assisting business between Brazil and the Arabic world for 71 years. From a commercial standpoint, Brazil exports billions of dollars worth of products to Cairo every year, making Egypt the second main commercial partner in Africa, with South Africa being the first. Sugar and corn are some of the top products exported. The growth in corn imports from Egypt is excellent news for Brazilian producers, and according to sources, it's part of a growing strategy of Egypt to produce more chicken. Meat is another top product, as Egypt is the sixth largest consumer in the world. The two countries have recently reached an agreement to ease up the licensing regulation to make it easier for Brazilian meat exporters to send it to Egypt. Further agreements such as this one are likely to be reached between the two countries later this year.
Celebrating the centennial and inviting Egypt to be part of the G20 events, it's part of a Brazilian strategy to grow its influence in Africa. The current administration has also visited other countries in the continent. This is part of an overall strategy to grow its influence in the global south and, of course, to increase the consumption of Brazilian goods. Chris Goldenbaum, BGTN, São Paulo, Brazil.
Chinese-owned social media app TikTok could soon be banned in the United States. That's if the lawmakers get their way, and they're one step closer. On Wednesday, the House voted in favor of passing legislation that would ban the use of the app, with 352 votes to 65. The bill will now be sent to the Senate. US President Joe Biden's indicated that if the bill lands on his desk, he will sign it into law. And that's despite his 2024 presidential campaign team adding TikTok to its plethora of social media publicity platforms last month. TikTok is a wholly owned subsidiary of ByteDance Limited, a Chinese technology firm. BGTN's Yolanda Pondo has more.
American lawmakers are worried that ByteDance is beholden to the Chinese government and could be forced to hand over consumer data if asked to do so, which America views as a potential national security threat. There are concerns that China could use algorithms to manipulate which videos users get to see, including videos that could influence voters' views ahead of the November presidential elections. But millions of American TikTok users are outraged, with many who use the app to generate income saying their businesses are in jeopardy. China, meanwhile, says the legislation, if passed, violates the First Amendment rights of around 170 million US users. There is a way around an outright ban, and that's if ByteDance divests TikTok. Lawmakers hope that passing the bill titled Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act could lead to TikTok separating from its parent company and, by extension, the ruling Communist Party of China.
Major investment is needed in BRICS Plus countries, including South Africa, after the impact of COVID. With rising interest rates, people just don't know where to put their money. Ray White attended the investment forum held in Sandton this week to find out more about the latest trends.
Artificial intelligence and finding the best investment solutions in seconds. These were among the main themes of the Investment Forum 2024. Investment houses from South Africa and abroad met to decide on the best ways to beat the financial headwinds facing the world.
Investing in 2024, where do you put your money? Well, we are at the Investment Forum in Sandton. So many choices. You can take your money, you can invest it locally, you can put it overseas if you want to. It just depends on you. But there are so many geopolitical pressures. I'm talking about wars around the world. I'm talking about rising interest rates, recessions. At the end of the day, you just do need some advice. But you can grow your money, and believe it or not, you can make a profit as well.
Those participating at the Investment Forum came up with solutions for businesses to thrive. They were given an opportunity to give their best advice, making a wall of messages for all to see.
Many of the companies here have been coming up with some really great ideas. The big one, though, is disruption. I see it all over. Disruption again. Reason being, it's disrupting your competitors. Big example of this is a very well-known camera company who refused to go digital, and they didn't. And then of course you had these smartphones coming out, and of course you have digital video. Well, that camera company today barely exists, and you all know what's happened with smartphones. So if you look at the wall, disruption, disruption, disruption. Many great ideas here.
However, investments can go wrong, and sometimes professional advice is needed. Some investment houses have come together, showing their latest technology to create common solutions.
I think it's a very interesting macro environment at the moment, where we're seeing a lot of geopolitical uncertainty and also a very fragmented world. What's making this year even more interesting is that 49% of the world's population are going to the polls. So we're seeing elections worldwide, including South Africa, so that's definitely adding to the uncertainty. Everyone expected interest rates to start coming down this year, but we're not seeing that happening yet. And I'm thinking that it probably will be pushed out to the latter part of the year until the elections are done and all the uncertainty has settled a bit.
So many options, so many places to put your money. But what happens if you get yourself into a little bit of trouble? I'm talking about geopolitical forces. There are conflicts around the world. We've got rising interest rates, that's another one. And what happens if you lose all your money and you hear this? Well, there are ways of getting out of it, and those ways include getting sound financial advice, putting your money somewhere where at the end of the day, if there's an election and things go wrong, there's a conflict, you can escape.
The Russian economy is being bolstered by Moscow's close economic relations with Beijing. Russia has suffered heavy financial blows following sanctions after it invaded Ukraine in February 2022. Countries including the United States, the UK and EU, Australia, Canada and Japan have collectively imposed more than 16,500 sanctions on Russia since 2022. The US Department of State lists some of these as limiting certain financing to 6 of Russia's largest banks and 4 energy companies, suspending credit finance that encourages exports to Russia, and financing for economic development projects in Russia. But China's not on board, choosing rather to take advantage of cheaper Russian oil compared to other producers. Trade between the two countries has soared by a staggering 64%. to $240 billion in just 2 years. BGTN's Kakan Ofe reports.
Chinese car exports to Russia in 2023 increased 7-fold year-on-year, with data showing growth of $10 billion. China snapped up 40% more of the Russian car market in the last 2 years, with brands like Geely and Chery being seen more frequently on the roads. And January-February economic data released by China this month points to a better than expected growth in foreign trade, coming in at 7.1%, more than 3 times the 1.9% forecast by international analysts. Beijing has credited its increased trade with Moscow as one of the reasons for growth in foreign trade, touting it as a new paradigm in economic relations with Russia.
South Africa and China are also working on trade relations. South Africa's Trade Industry and Competition Minister Ibrahim Patel has met with his Chinese counterpart Wang Wentao in Beijing. During the 4-day visit, Patel also met with investors and a number of Chinese electric vehicle and battery manufacturers. Patel and Wentao discussed a possible memorandum of understanding on the automotive industry. Meetings were also held with investors in the steel and energy sectors, where plans were discussed for doing business with the South African market. China is currently South Africa's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade estimated at $34 billion. That's around 556 billion rand in 2022. Coming up, BRICS Sports with Ben Ricozzo.
Every white cross represents a farmer who has been murdered. Some call these the forgotten farm murders.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
I went into a tackle, and he was this very big guy. He was a world wrestling champion. And I went in thinking that I'd be able to use my force to knock him over. And his shoulder connected my head, and that's when I broke my neck. So I lay on the field. We lay for about an hour. The ambulance couldn't get onto the field because it was a semi-professional game.
With a look at BRICS sports stories, I am Ben Ricodzo. Saudi Arabia League side Al Hilal has set a world record for a number of consecutive wins by a top-flight team. That's after the team beat Al Ittihad 2-0 in an Asian Champions League quarterfinals on Tuesday night for a 28th straight win. Jorge Jesus' side has beaten the previous record of 27 wins by a Welsh Premier League champions, the New Saints, from 2016 to 2017 season. The New Saints has beaten Ajax Amsterdam's 26-game winning streak, a record that had stood for 44 years. Track and field athletes from Brazil, Ecuador, Peru and Portugal will be tested more regularly ahead of the Paris Olympics in France 2024. That's because of the substandard anti-doping programs in their home countries. Each country failed to heed the warning after the 2022 World Championships held in Oregon in the United States. To improve no-notice testing ahead of 2023 edition, the Athletic Integrity said, calling the targeted testing by a nation is unprecedented. And a quick look at other sports stories in brief. Shanghai will hold the Olympic qualifier series for BMX freestyle, skateboarding, breaking and sport climbing in the mid-May at the Huangpu Riverside. According to the organizing committee, the preliminary rounds will take place on the 16th and 17th of May, and the final rounds will be held on May 18 and 19 to incorporate the concept of youth, urban, and openness. Former Formula One driver Felipe Massa said he has filed a lawsuit in London against auto racing body, the FAI, the series owner of Formula One management, and Benny Ecclestone to try and claim the 2008 title. Following their 4-1 humbling of England at home, India occupied the top spot in the newly released ICC team rankings. The jump in the Red Ball rankings now has India reigning supreme in the ICC team rankings across all formats. The ABB FIA Formula E World Championship returns this weekend with round 4 of season 10 for the Sao Paulo E-Prix. After a thrilling debut last year, Formula E is back in Brazil, home of the legends, Senna, Piquet, Fittipaldi, for the next chapter in the battle of the ABB FI Formula One E World Championship before the passionate motorsport fan base. And the special one, Jose Mourinho, compares the African champions Al Ahly to Real Madrid, and he hails Abu Trika. He said, Al Ahly are maybe the Real Madrid of Africa. The amount of titles they've won is incredible. That's a wrap from your sport.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
I remember being in the stadium, going into the stadium, and there were kids outside asking for our autograph and things like that. And they really believed that we were these superhuman characters, that we just used the wheelchair to get around, hidden superpowers kind of thing. And the stadium in London was sold out every single day. I mean, for that, it I think was both for the athlete and for people around the world said, you know, this is actually something worth watching. This is something, you know, that's worthwhile. We can take note of it.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
Now, can your program be copied overseas, or is it exclusively designed for South Africa's society?
So it can definitely be replicated. We've replicated it in businesses even, and we've used it in after-school programs that are not in school specifically. So we've already seen that it works in different contexts, and we'd love to take it overseas because obviously a few tweaks here and there, if needed, can be made. But the point is the basic model is something that anyone can use.
And finally, BGTN recently hosted Homeless Talk for our first journalism workshop. It was a chance for journalists to sharpen their skills and also to ask seasoned broadcaster Ray White anything they wanted to know about how to write a good story. Take a look.
As part of BGTN's partnership with Homeless Talk newspaper, join us as we look back at the first journalism workshop held.
I want you each to write down 2 words that you are from here that you think are important, or 2 topics you can even go that one, that one, that one, that one. What do you think is important from the story? Write them down, and then we're going to go around to see what are the important elements of the story. Everyone with me?
The attendees recount how the journalism workshop provided a platform for growth and exploration.
Such an awesome day today, what we did and what we spoke about. And if you think about it, how important the media is. Now, Homeless Talk, such a great publication as well. You see it on our street corners, we buy it, we read it. I was very refreshed to see the articles as well, because when I said to the folks here, I said, what articles do you use? Who are you writing for? And they said, no, middle to upper class, because we need to get that revenue in. I just thought to myself, it's so clever, because you know who your target market is because of that revenue. But yeah, getting down to the media and the importance of the media, and you could see that today. Everyone's saying, we're important, we want to know how to do it properly, and I think they really enjoyed today.
The writing exercise was pretty awesome because I didn't know, I could just think of the out of the box in the heat of the moment, and how to like improvise if you need to improvise. So it was quite informative and nice.
Today's workshop was actually an opportunity of a lifetime. That's what I could say. What we have learned today, we could also relay it to some of our colleagues that didn't come, because I think this is the information that we, as the writers and the entire staff of Homeless Talk, we really needed. It actually empowered us, especially about how we tackle a story, how we go about interviewing high-profile individuals, I can say that, and how we as journalists, we are also governed by the laws of the land, and also how to respect the sources that we could come across.
That's it. Well done. Yeah, you got it, you got it.
BGTN cares, connecting our futures, securing a brighter tomorrow.
Well, that's it for this week. And just a reminder, there are more BRICS Plus stories on our website and on social media.